Thank you very much for the delicious fruit salad.
Don't mention it. What's up with your mate? He hasn't eaten a thing.
Well, the fat bloke, the one with no hair, he thought he would try him oriented in the horizontal position, and, well, now he can't eat anything.
Oh, poor bugger. It's a right pain not having hands.
Who is Hans?
Anyway, where is the fat one? We need to get you two back to being a matched pair.
We're a matched pair.
The A25-M is a three-way studio monitor built by PSI Audio, a Swiss manufacturer founded 42 years ago by Alain Roux. Available in black, white and studio red.
It's burgundy.
Along with other colours on request. PSI monitors are built on the foundation of getting the sound right in the conception and production of the speaker itself, rather than relying on DSP later down the line. All three of the A25 speaker drivers are designed and handmade in-house in Switzerland to ensure low distortion, high precision and the finest quality control. Each monitor is then assembled and tested in an anechoic chamber to ensure exact precision when compared to another unit. Every A25 is sonically identical, meaning you can take any two of the same model at any point in their production history and you'll have a matched pair. In combination with bespoke drivers, there are two proprietary technologies assisting the A25-M in its sonic accuracy, all in the analog domain. Firstly, adaptive output impedance, or AOI, is a motion feedback system utilised on all three drivers, removing the ringing often found in other speaker units.
A fast speaker can be thought of as one whose drive units move very quickly when presented with an electrical signal and then come to an abrupt stop when that signal is no longer present. When we perceive the sound of a fast speaker, we often mean that the transient information in the sound is very clear. The way PSI's AOI, or adaptive output impedance technology, works is that for every time the speaker driver moves forward to produce a sound, the current induced by the coil movement in the magnet is used to adapt the output impedance of the amplifier according to the frequency being emitted, meaning that as the driver returns to its rested position, it is stopped dead, rather than allowing the remaining kinetic energy to continue vibrating the cone. There is no overhang or underhang or number wang. This gives a much sharper and clearer frequency response with no resonance continuing after the audio information has passed through the speaker and stopped again.
Secondly, CPR phase compensation reduces the phase discrepancies heard in stereo listening by withholding various frequencies that are more prone to being most evident when out of phase, and delaying them for a minuscule amount of time to allow for the slower frequencies to catch up, allowing for a more coherent wavefront to reach the listener. Again, this increases the effectiveness of transients and improves stereo imaging.
A neutral phase monitor needs to compensate for the filter-induced phase discrepancy introduced in the crossover portion by delaying the high frequencies for a fraction longer than the low frequencies, bringing the phase delay into what's considered acceptable for a studio monitor, ideally less than 1 millisecond. Again, on the PSI A25-M, this is all done in the analog domain. There are none of the additional conversion stages necessary for digital signal processing within a monitor.
Powering the woofer and mid-range drivers is a Class GH amplification system, custom made for the monitors. Interestingly, the amplifiers can switch actively between two tension levels when needed, allowing for the most efficient usage of components at both low and high levels, in turn reducing distortion and operating temperatures inside the amplifiers, meaning no noisy fans or large heat sinks taking up more cabinet space. The A25's tweeter uses a Class AB amplifier as less energy is needed to produce higher frequencies. With a total potential peak power of 515 watts of amplification driving the speakers, there's no shortage of power available. These amplifiers are fed by a single XLR input on the rear of the cabinet. The drivers themselves are of very high quality. The tweeter mid-driver feature neodymium magnets, and the mid-driver features extended dome driver, or EXD, technology, taking the best of both dome and cone driver construction formats while eliminating the disadvantages of each.
In the mid-range, some dome drivers tend to become either unstable in the middle of the dome or too heavy due to more rigid material being used, and therefore only offer a limited bandwidth in the low end. Cone drivers, on the other hand, pose a relatively large weight and mass in their composition of membrane, dust cap, spider and suspension, which limits the SPL and can cause distortion. With heavy basket designs, airflow and therefore cooling can be restricted. Even the dust cap can add distortion.
The EXD mid-range driver, developed for the A25-M, combines a 4-inch latex and graphite-infused paper cone membrane with a light polypropylene dome, both of which are connected directly to the voice coil. With the dimensions and weight ratio of coil and membranes optimized in this way, the EXD offers higher SPL at lower distortion, and to further improve its performance, the new driver is built directly onto the rotatable baffle with no basket at all. This is quite an unusual setup, and both the mid-driver and tweeter are housed in their own, surprisingly small, compartment within the cabinet. Finally, a 25cm woofer driver brings us the bass information. The size of the bass driver determines the name of the speaker. The A25 features a 25cm bass driver, the A17 features a 17cm one, and so on. With a peak max SPL of 124 decibels, these speakers can go really loud but still maintain their accuracy. Likewise, even at incredibly low levels, the entire spectrum is still very audible and accurate. The total frequency spectrum offers from 28Hz up to 23,000Hz, allowing you to hear your entire mix with nothing left to question. However, there is the option to add the A125 or 225 subwoofers, turning the system into a 4-way monitoring setup, with the bass driver on the A25-M rolled off at 100Hz to allow the spectral space for the subwoofer to take over. In terms of frequency response, these speakers are incredibly flat, with only 1.2 decibels of tolerance over the entire spectrum from 20 to 20,000 Hz, even at the crossover points of 400 and 3,300 Hz, and there are no discernible imperfections in the frequency response. And lastly, the cabinets themselves. These are not small speakers by any means. They'll look pretty large in most home studios, coming in at 32 by 59 by 38 centimeters. They're also pretty heavy at 27.2 kilos apiece. One person can lift these, but because of their size, it's a little easier to have someone help you. But are they, as PSI claim on their website, the most accurate 3-way studio monitor ever? Mark?
Probably, if you're talking frequency response as measured in an anechoic chamber, but regular viewers know that we take measurements very much with a pinch of salt. Whilst looking at response curves on a graph might be useful to some, it doesn't give any real indication of how a monitor will sound in your room and what it's like to work on. So we've developed our own measurement tool when we have a new set of monitors to test in the studio, and that test is...
How long does Mark stay into the night and listen to music as loud as he likes?
Oh boy. Initial listening tests were very favourable, and the first things that stood out for me were the tight and controlled low end and super precise stereo imaging, leading to a huge sense of depth and space that's perfect for judging reverb tails, pre-delay and positioning of instruments not only from left to right but also front to back. I experimented with both the vertical and horizontal placement of the mid and tweeter and slightly preferred them in the vertical position. There's just something that seems to sound right about having all the drivers in a line from top to bottom, but it was very close, and I'd be more than happy to use these in their horizontal format if they were performing mixed duties on stands behind a meter bridge. And it's in this midfield position that they perform at their best as midfield monitors. Ideally you want them somewhere between 1.5 and 3 meters from the listening position in an adequately sized room, but they go loud enough to be positioned a bit further back than that, and the sheer level of SPL they can produce belies their physical size. I had to work really hard to get the LEDs to flicker red, letting me know that the limiters were kicking in, but even then they remained incredibly dynamic and sounded like
much larger monitors, even without a sub. Just huge sound. Mix is translated incredibly well to other systems, and when using them for mastering, I found the bass end to be spot on, the high is incredibly detailed but not at all hyped or fatiguing, and the mid-range, well, these are incredible monitors and should be for the price, but there is still one company that to my ears and James's and Jamie's still slightly beat them for mid-range detail, and that is of course ATC, and we'll be reviewing the ATC SCM45s in our next video, which come in at pretty much the same price as the PSIs. But whilst we all agreed that the ATCs just had that extra tiny level of detail in the mids, it's down to personal choice, how your ears work, and the mids in these were certainly revealing and detailed enough to perform the majority of critical mixing and mastering tasks. In short, these are spectacular monitors. I really put them through their paces during the first week that we had them in the studio, and I'd highly recommend you check these out if you're in the market for a pair of speakers at around the 10k price point.
Thank you very much to Fabrice from PSI and to Paul Mortimer from Emerging UK for arranging a demo pair and bringing them over and leaving them with us to get to know for this video. We'll be reviewing the company's smaller and brand new A17 as soon as a pair land in the UK, so make sure you've subscribed and dinged the ding dong to be notified of future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and you'll see us in the next one.
Mahogany.